Hello and welcome. My name is Andre Davis. Today we are going to, uh, this is part of my morning movement accountability. Just something for me to uh, get used to doing something in the morning, uh, working out, and offer uh, some sort of guidance or reference to those who are looking to have some movement. So for the past couple days, I've been doing this. This is my fourth day doing it. Fourth day doing it. So I think today I'm going to bypass the breathing stuff. I've been opening up with breathing every morning. I did some of that before I got here this morning. So I think I'm going to look at some hip stuff. But I was also thinking about working on some fall stuff since winter's on the way. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Probably just going to be some hip stuff. Getting some movement going on that, some flexibility. I know that I tend to get tight hips frequently. So it's I've found though if I take the time to stretch them out and work on moving, getting some motion, mobility in it, do some exercises often, then it doesn't really cause as much as a problem for me. I don't notice it, or I don't have anything to notice at that point. The more you move around, the more you use your muscles and your joints and all of your body, the more comfortable you get with it. I know I've found that myself. So regarding the hips, let's see here. There's all kinds of things that we can do. Our hips are here, obviously, and one of the things that's helped me in the past is really just getting in the habit of walking often. If you get into that habit, maybe in the morning, after work, after dinner, whenever you can find time, during breaks, just moving these right here helps a lot. Part of that is moving with a little bit of intention as you do it. So when we're walking, a lot of the times we tend to have poor posture, slouch, and it just turns into an idea of getting from point A to point B. So we're just using locomotion. As opposed to while we do it, we can simply think about the things that we're doing. And if we think about our hips as we're doing that, literally have that in your mind, you're gonna feel the stretch come, or any tension come in your hip here as you go. You may feel your hip sway from side to side. If you start focusing on keeping it straight as opposed to swinging it so much, you're gonna find a difference. Some people have weak hips, or have a weaker hip on one side than the other. It may be really tight and stretched down, so you're being pulled one way, causing your legs to unevenly be carrying your weight, which can cause more problem all the way up and down your body. So one of the things I like to think about when I'm walking is trying not to cramp my hips all up. I want to keep my core extended as much as I can, so that my rib cage is coming up away from my hips as opposed to slouching down onto it and bunching up all of these muscles. It's hard to tell here, but this is going to make your hips feel a little bit more free as they walk, and you'll be able to have a little bit more action going on in your hips, the front of your hips, the side of your hips. And if you have if you're really bound up, it may not be something that you feel right away, but certainly over time, if it's something that you practice, you're gonna get that. So again, with the walking portion of it, what I'm saying is keep that chest up, your rib cage separated from your hips, extend that, and then as you walk, just kind of think about your hips, think about where they're at, touch them if you want, to feel any tension that comes, that the muscles actually moving underneath it as you take each step. So while we're standing here, we'll look at some simple hip exercises that you can do excuse me, to loosen them up, get some mobility going. We can certainly do hip rotations, so you can do this with your hands on your hips or not, but let's put our hands on our hips for now, and then if we just swing around in a circle like we've got a hula hoop going on. If you have your hands on your hips, you're gonna feel, you'll feel it work. If you keep your hands off your hips, you'll kind of naturally move with your body. It feels a little bit more fun, I think, to do it this way, but it takes a bit of balance, especially as you're coming around to the outside. Your knee may kind of feel like it's locked up. If you have a problem with balance, maybe putting your hands on your hips is the better way to go at first, for that feeling of stability. When we come out around to the front here, I'm trying to bend at the hip as opposed to just bending up top or bending at the knees here, because the hip is where we want to start feeling that all around. And then bring that around. And then same thing with the front. As we're swinging around to the front, we're kind of feeling the stretch at the bottom part. So if I just bend over at the front here, I'm not really getting that stretch or that feel in the hip necessarily, or the mobility, unless I start waggling my butt a little bit. But if I really focus on that, I'm gonna get a bit of a stretch and mobility at the same time. We can go the other way. But really this is just to loosen it up. Especially if you wake up in the morning, you're a little bit tight. Any types of these simple mobility exercises will loosen you up a little bit. We won't go into it so much here, but knees, just kind of bending a little bit, go into squats as you want, shake your arms, windmills, whatever you want to do. But going back to the hips. So then there's also the side bends going through, and this is another situation where if as you're bending, so we can do the overarm and then we're gonna get a full stretch here, but if we're really just trying to focus on the hips, we don't need to bring our arm way up. We'll just pull up, and what I'm pulling, I'm really feeling right here. I'm imagining, and I'm putting my weight mostly onto this leg here, but I'm pulling down, or not necessarily pulling down, but kind of keeping this leg planted, and I'm trying not to bend my knee or anything, and just kind of pull the weight down as I pull, or as I extend towards this way. So then I'm going to get a feeling here. I can kind of tilt forward, tilt back as I do that to feel that stretch come around there. Then we come to the other side, do the same thing. And again, getting that stretch right around the hip area. And after, keep up with this, do it on a regular basis. Certainly feel, even if you don't have hip problems necessarily, feel a lot looser in the hip area. The movement gets a lot easier. So then we'll go down to the ground, work on a little bit of mobility with that. There's fire hydrants that we can do, which are just lifting your hip up, your leg up like this, as if you're a dog urinating on a fire hydrant. call them hurdlers or whatever along the way. But from here, that'll give you some hip strength work and glute work. But also if we take that and start moving around that, not just bring it straight up, but start swinging it around, backwards, gives you a safe spot to kind of work with your hip joint and move it around. And we can switch to the other side. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Again, this is just loosening stuff up to where you need it to be. You're gonna feel where it gets a little bit tighter, or if it's really easy, you can adjust your weight on the front of your arms to do that. Adjust where your weight is on your planted leg. So there's that. As far as other hip stretches, ways to kind of really feel your hips work a little bit and work on that mobility of it. I like to work on the strength of the hips by doing folds. So when you come down into like a split coming down like this, a lot of people think about it and always focus on the legs, stretching out the legs here. But really there's an element of hip strength that's coming in along with this if we try to make sure that our upper body is straight as we do that, as opposed to really focusing on bending down, trying to touch our knees, letting our backs arc along the way. If we're coming down like this, our hips are starting to get activated, and the farther down you can kind of go with it using your hip strength as opposed to some weight coming down or reaching out with your back or anything like that, you're gonna feel your hips activated, mostly here and like right above your butt. And so if we do that for a little bit, hold the stretch at this point, and then release. That's another way to get a little bit of hip activation and start getting a little bit more strength in the hip. And then lastly, we'll just look at some frog stretches, or a frog stretch, which is a good way to open everything up out front. So you're just going to be on your knees like this, and my legs are splayed out a little bit. And if we just kind of push in and drop down with our hips and just drive them into the ground, we're going to feel the front really pull out. You can relax a little bit, ease back into it, and then you're going to kind of get that movement, that rotation, similar to when we were doing the hydrants, but less of a full rounded, but more of that full forward push. So one more thing, just to incorporate one thing I like to do on occasion, and incorporate the stances that I went over before. If we get into a horse stance and focus on it, going back to what I was first talking about, that rotating around, we can do that from a horse stance. And if you're comfortable in a horse stance and you're comfortable with your balance, this is, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun to do at the same time. And just kind of do that same hip rotation and bring it around as much as you can. Right now, I'm running out of balance. And hang where you can. Kind of and really feel that separation of the upper part of your body and the lower part of your body, and just work on stretching that part out. It's fun, I think. It feels like you're in the Matrix, trying to dodge whatever you're dodging. But yeah, that's about all I really had to go over today, this morning, and that will be that. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, comment, do whatever it is you got to do. Highly encourage you, especially if you feel like you have tight hips. Generally, just work on it. Do some exercises in the morning or in the day, whenever you find time. Stretch it out a little bit, or any part of your body, really. Stay as active as you feel you can, and then things will get better. I don't know. All right, bye.